This is a very real problem that has gone on for many, many years, predominantly on our Missouri-Kansas border, but we also see it starting to have some prevalence down in the southwest corner of the state and along our southern border as well. Many refer to this as the border war, as I mentioned, because it involves our two states continuing to fight one another for jobs. Now, if these were net new jobs, that would be one thing, but essentially what we've seen, what all the data has shown, is that these are not new jobs. The states are simply using their many different economic development incentives to shuffle existing jobs back and forth across the border, enticing companies to move them to pay based upon who can offer the bigger and better deal. So if you look at the actual numbers, you can see how damaging this border war has been to both sides. There was a study done just last year by the Hall Family Foundation that found that Kansas and Missouri have handed out a combined $212 million in corporate subsidies to lure jobs back and forth across State Line Road. Over 3,200 of these jobs relocated from Jackson County to Johnson or Wyandotte counties at a cost to Kansas of around $140 million. A little over 2,800 jobs moved from those same Kansas counties to Jackson County, Missouri at a cost of $72 million. You know, if you're talking about who technically won, we could say that Kansas won with the net jobs being created, but it was a cost to taxpayers of over $300,000 per job. So when you look at the cost compared to the jobs, you see that neither side is truly creating any new jobs for the region. So the region overall is losing the economic battle.
Bill 635 represents a bilateral agreement. Okay, we have the issue in Kansas City where, because we are divided by a street, businesses are moving back and forth across the state line, being offered millions of dollars in state-level tax incentives to do so, and in some instances even taking short-term leases so that when their lease expires in the new state that they went to, they can turn around and churn the process again and take millions of dollars from the other state to move back. What this has done over the last several years is take millions of dollars out of the state's economic development ability and trap it in what's basically a washing machine of just continually churning the same jobs over and over back and forth across the state line. The problem is, because of our regional situation, when you move across the state line, most times it's not creating a new job. It's a job that already existed in the community. Therefore, where I live, north of the river, it's very easy for me if I was working for a company located downtown and they took millions of dollars to move across the state line into Johnson County, likely not going to pick up my family, move them over to Johnson County, I would simply change my commute. So when we think about job creation and incentives to bring jobs, there's a lot that goes into that, including the ancillary ability to bring people into the region who are now going to be paying sales tax, who are now paying property tax where they weren't before. And what we've seen over the last several years is you don't get any of that benefit in our region, just moving the jobs back and forth. So what this does is it sets up a bilateral agreement. If Kansas doesn't agree to go along with this bill doesn't have any effect whatsoever. But if they do agree to go along, we're setting up a zone in 4 counties on each side of the state line. On the Kansas side, it would be the counties of Douglas, Johnson, Miami, and Wyandotte. And on the Missouri side, it's Clay, Platte, Jackson, and Cass. And basically what we're saying is, if you're going to relocate a job from one of the counties on the Kansas side to one of the counties on the Missouri side, if Kansas agrees to go with us into this, we will not offer state-level incentives to relocate that job, because that job does not represent new economic development for the region.
In metropolitan Kansas City, the states of Missouri and Kansas are waging a wasteful economic border war. Each state is offering significant financial incentives to shuffle existing jobs back and forth across the state line within the metropolitan area. Neither state benefits from this. In fact, both are losing. There's always been movement of jobs between the two states. However, the Missouri Quality Jobs Program, now Missouri Works, and Promoting Employment Across Kansas, or PEAK, have made the interstate shuffling of existing jobs financially lucrative to businesses in greater Kansas City. Since any job that is new to either state is considered a new job, existing companies can move across the state line and enjoy significant financial benefits without the disruption of truly relocating. As an example, two identical firms could change states and each receive substantial financial benefits even though there is no additional economic benefit to the community or to either state. This is what is happening in metropolitan Kansas City today. The state is losing 100% of the employee withholding revenue from the exiting company and rebating 100% of the employee withholding revenue of the entering company, all for existing jobs. Thus, the company wins, the state and taxpayers lose, and little if any new economic activity results. The effect of this policy is fivefold. First, the cost of incentives is high and the benefits are low. A few companies get significant subsidies, but the economic benefit to the community and state is minimal. Two, it is unfair and uncompetitive to in-state employers who have to pay higher taxes or suffer reduced services for the significant incentives provided to a few. Three, it is destructive to regional cooperation, which is critically important in our metropolitan area. Four, incentives are wasted on existing jobs rather than creating or attracting real new jobs that benefit the community and state through increased economic activity. And five, it is inherently unfair that one taxpayer pays the state while another pays his or her employer. We have examined the state record to determine the extent of this wasteful existing job shuffle in both Missouri and Kansas. Our study includes relocation incentives from PEAK and Missouri Quality Jobs Program only. It does not include retention incentives or other incentive programs. Since 2009, 3,343 existing jobs have relocated from Jackson County, Missouri to Johnson or Wyandotte County, Kansas at a cost of forgiven revenue to the state of Kansas of $141 million. 2,929 existing jobs have moved from these counties in Kansas to Jackson County, Missouri at a cost of forgiven revenue of $76 million. A total of $217 million has been forgiven to shuffle existing jobs. This calculates to a net gain of 414 jobs to Kansas. Kansas's cost, forgiven taxes, per existing job relocated is $340,000 per job. The PEAK program has been used for 49 relocations, 36 from Jackson County to Johnson or Wyandotte County. The incentive provided are among the largest nationally, and those are for existing jobs. And I draw your attention to Exhibit A, which is about 4 pages back. There's a group out of Washington called Good Jobs First, which tracks subsidy provided through incentives for job relocation. I'm not suggesting this is every subsidy that has gone on since 2004. These are the ones they're aware of. We have the first between the two states, between Kansas and Missouri. In the Kansas City metropolitan area, we have the largest per job incentives, the third and fourth largest job incentives. No one is coming close to spending the amount per job that's being spent in our region. But this is the tip of the iceberg because businesses use the threat of moving to get retention incentives, which also can be significant. There are those who benefit financially from this job shuffle who will tell you that jobs will leave the area for Denver or Dallas. But who left for incentives before Missouri Quality Jobs or PEAK? How many firms make decisions based upon incentives rather than workforce or overall business climate? Look at the firms who are benefiting and see if your common sense or knowledge makes you believe they are moving. The more lucrative the incentives, the more there will be threats of moving. In your handout is a list, Exhibit B, of the firms that have used Missouri Quality Jobs and PEAK. In April 2011, 17 CEOs called on the governors of Missouri and Kansas to stop wasteful spending by incenting movement of existing jobs in the metropolitan area. That letter is Exhibit C. Nothing has happened. The need for action remains. We do not oppose the use of incentives, such as Missouri Works or PEAT, when they create new economic activity. We do oppose the wasteful use of incentives when they shuffle existing jobs and produce little or no economic benefit. We can't solve all the business climate differences between the two states, and we shouldn't stop the free movement of companies to choose where they locate. However, what we can do is correct the most abusive and inefficient uses of incentives which benefit few at the expense of many. I'd like to close my remarks by quoting from a December 2013 paper issued by the National League of Cities entitled Regional Cooperation Agreements in Economic Development. Competition between counties, states, and cities for talent, jobs, and businesses can be a healthy activity. It incentivizes governments to formulate policies that promote economic growth and improve local assets such as workforce development programs, quality of life enhancements, infrastructure investments, and efficient regulatory and tax structures. But competition for jobs can also lead to inefficient policy choices, namely counterproductive intra-regional competition, commonly referred to as poaching. In these situations, communities deploy some of their resources, usually in the form of finance or tax incentives, to lure companies away from a jurisdiction next door. Short-sighted competition between neighboring communities leads to a silo effect, a lack of communication and cooperation, where inter-regional economic development becomes an unnecessary zero-sum game between players that should be on the same team. It ignores the regional nature of economies and results in merely a reshuffling of the deck chairs or the shifting of jobs versus the creation of new ones. There are numerous examples of companies moving only a few miles into the suburbs to the detriment of the urban employee. These transfers can go both ways, however. Rather than continue unproductive and local competition that can lead to detrimental economic and fiscal outcomes, cities, counties, economic development organizations, and other community stakeholders can commit to regional cooperation. Developing a regional framework that focuses on a clear, cohesive, and unified economic development strategy projects a positive business environment to outside firms while encouraging the expansion and retention of existing businesses. Thank you all for your attention.
Chairman, members of the committee, Tracy King here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We'd like to go on record in support of the bill. It is important to the business community in Kansas City, but we also see the impact to the entire state. And for that, we'd like to ask you for your support.
Any questions?